Okay, I'm calling the Committee of the Whole meeting for March 6, 2017 to order, and I will begin by asking the Deputy Mayor if there are any additions to the agenda.
Mayor Brockenier, there are a report from the Manager of Water Services, Lakefront Utilities Services, Inc. regarding the 2016 Cobourg Water Treatment Plant Summary Compliance Report, and the action recommended that the matter be added to the agenda.
Okay, discussion? All in favor? Carried. Okay. Are there any declarations of interest from members of council tonight? Councillor Darling.
Yes, Your Worship. I was just reviewing it as with the public meeting. If there's anything to deal with Sobeys, again, I will be declaring a conflict.
Yeah. Could you just, for the record, explain to the clerk?
Yes, I guess some people weren't watching the public meeting. My son-in-law and daughter own the Foodland franchise. They do not actually own the Sobeys property, but own the franchise. So under those terms, I will be declaring the conflict.
Very good. Thank you. Okay, next on the, okay, I'm going to move the chair, but before I move the chair over to Deputy Mayor Henderson, I'm trying to speak a little louder tonight. So some of the feedback that I've had from people watching us on the live streaming is that the voices are not coming through, and they're asking us if we would just speak up a little bit. So I'm asking all of council to do the same thing. So Deputy Mayor Henderson, you have the chair.
Thanks, Your Worship. There's a memo from the Chief Administration Officer regarding the update of the 2015-2018 Town of Cobourg Strategic Plan. The action recommended that the Council receive the report for information purposes and direct staff to post the report on the municipal website for public review and comment, and further that staff prepare an updated implementation plan for approval, incorporating any public input and feedback for approval by Council for the purposes of carrying out the work of the Town of Cobourg updated 2015 and 2018 strategic plan.
It has been moved. Any discussion on the motion for the strategic plan? Councillor?
Yes, sir. Your Worship, just a quick question in regards to the timing. I noticed that April the 3rd is when I'd like to have it come back to council for a review and a further action on it. Is that enough time for the public? I mean, it's just a month, but I know some of them like a little longer to comment.
Well, I think a month is plenty of time for what's contained in the strategic plan. I think all of council will agree that we went, the process we went through was a very good process and had good participation from all members of council as well as staff. And so I think that the end result should be very close to what the citizens of Cobourg are looking for, but a month gives them plenty of time to make a comment. Deputy Mayor Henderson? Oh, go ahead. You're the chair, not me.
Thank you. And to that regard, to Councillor Rowden, I conclude with his worship, because we ran a very open process here in council chambers. It was certainly a full day, and I'd like to give credit to Carolyn Kearns, who did a wonderful job once again in leading this council and making sure we abided by the sections as we went through them. So based on that, I concur that a month should be sufficient, and hopefully they'll respond accordingly. Is there any other questions from members of council? Hearing none, I'd like to call all in favor. Against? Carried. Next, we have the memo from the Treasurer Director of Corporate Services regarding cancellation, reduction, or refund of taxes, outlining the final 2016 reduction of property taxes within the Town of Cobourg. The action recommended that Council approve the reduction of property taxes in the amount of $284,183.42. And at this point, perhaps I'll ask Mr. Davey to speak to this briefly, because he is our Director of Finance.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Yes, this report, basically, there had been one report partway through 2016, and this one cleans up the rest of the year to the end of 2016. you will see when you look at the financial implications, the second half of the year, the implication for the town of Cobourg specifically was $116,437.21, which brought our year-to-date write-offs to $239,111.50. We had budgeted $200,000, so we are $39,000 over the budget on the write-offs. That's partially offset by our supplementary taxes, which we had budgeted for $350,000, and these supplementaries came in slightly more than that at almost $360,000. So about $10,000 of that pickup will come from the extra subs. So the approximately $30,000 will just fall through the bottom line as part of our year-end surplus once the books are finally closed for 2016.
And thank you for that explanation, and I know that was part of our budget proceedings as well. Are there any further questions from members of council? Hearing none, all those in favor? Against? Carried. And back to you, Your Worship.
Okay, thank you, Deputy Mayor Henderson. So there is not anything under Parks and Recreation tonight, so Councillor Rowden, you have the chair for Public Works.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. And I guess I have about 4 items on the agenda tonight. And I have, first of all, a memo from the Director of Public Works regarding the James Street East construction project funding. And the action recommended that Council proceed with the James Street East reconstruction and approve the use of $459,000 taken from the Federal Gas Tax Fund and $120,000 from the Sanitary Sewers Reserve to fund the reconstruction of James Street East as a result of the Ontario Community Infrastructure Fund OCIF funding application being unsuccessful for this portion of the 2017 capital budget. And if Council remember, at budget time there was a report from our director that we hoped to get some of this money from the province, but we did not get any. We did get some last year for Division Street, and for the public's interest that we don't always get provincial grants. We were fortunate enough to get one last year, but not this year. So this new funding is. Any questions? Deputy Mayor?
Through you, Mr. Chair, just supporting your recommendation, and just to make Council aware, especially Councillor Seguin, in previous year, in the previous budget, we held this off for a full year, and it's come back, and I know Public Works, as is Lucy, is anxious. I want to give credit to Public Works. They put in the proper applications that they've done in previous years, and if you heard from Councillor Rowland, we did not receive any grant or additional money. And I also like to thank Mr. Davey because he encourages us through the budget not to spend all our federal gas tax. And here's a great example why. Because if we have to depend on our own resources, we have that resource available. In this case, it's $459,000 that we can go to ensure that these projects do in fact finally get completed. So I'm very much in support after Public Works waiting patiently, and Lucy, for a full year. And I know the residents on James Street are anxious because I think their street hasn't been done in at least 80 to 100 years. So it's long overdue. So I will be supporting Councillor Rowden in his recommendation.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And another thing, too, our director and the engineers did manage to get the tenders out early, and we do have an option on there because I think the tenders are marked as funding available. So we're protected under that part of it, and we'll see how we make out, because putting them in on an early time, especially in the winter, you sometimes get better tender prices. Last year, Division Street went in real late because of some problems, and it ended up a lot higher than it should have been. So, anyways, any other questions? Councillor Darling?
Yes, Councillor Rowden, thank you. More of a comment in that I attended the public meeting in regards to the James Street reconstruction, and there were several residents from the street area who checked out all the plans and whatnot, and are more than satisfied that it will be a project that they would like to see go forward. Thank you.
Yeah, exactly. I was there too, and I remember them saying that. Councillor Seguin?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Maybe through you to Mr. Davey. The $459,000 that was used for this construction, obviously you're allowed to carry forward and use the gas tax money that you get in reserves year to year. Does this deplete the fund, or do we have any left over?
Yes. The initial projection was that we would finish 2017 based on the budget with $1,384,000 in the federal gas. So with this now taken out, it's going to bring it closer to $9.25 at the end of the year. So there still should, be close to the $1 million by the end of the year in that reserve.
Thank you, Treasurer Davey. Any other questions? If not, I'll ask for the vote. All in favor? Carried. Item number 2, as a member from the Secretary of Environment, Active Transportation Advisory Committee regarding Pitch In Canada event. And this is something that we've had for quite a number of years now. And the action recommended that Council endorse the recommendations of the Environmental Active Transportation Advisory Committee and proclaim the week of April 22nd to 29th, 2017 as Pitch In Canada Week in the town of Cobourg, and further that Council encourage citizens to participate in the local pitch-in event on Saturday, April the 22nd, 2017 in the town of Cobourg, and the 9th annual 20-minute makeover on Friday, April the 21st, 2017, and further that the town of Cobourg participate in the Mayor's Keep the County Clean Challenge. And I understand maybe Mayor Braconier, did you ever win that challenge? I'm not sure.
Actually, we did not.
Okay.
It was won by one of the smaller municipalities.
Okay. Any questions in regards to this? It's an annual event, and if anyone, council staff or anybody in the public want to come down to the town hall and get their little bags, and they can take a section of town and go and pick up. I did it last year, and it was quite a fun thing, as well as went to the recycling plant down at Grafton afterwards. There are a lot of people invited down there, and that is a freebie. It's a barbecue and a chance to tour the plant where all this recyclable stuff should be going, that we see distributed all over our streets in town. Any other questions? Councillor Sequin?
Just a comment. We've participated in the last 2 years, and let's pray for no rain, because picking up garbage in a nice day is wonderful. Picking up garbage when it's not so nice. And I'm always amazed at the type of things that we find. We've done 2 different, totally distinct areas in the last 2 years, and it just blows my mind as to what people do discard and why.
I agree with you 100%, because there's supposed to be a poop and scoop bylaw in town, and that doesn't always work either. They pick it up and then they throw the bag away. Anyways, Councillor McCarthy.
And I might add, the smoking bylaw in Victoria Park, I picked up hundreds of butts. So I would like to have Victoria Park again to see if there's a fewer number.
Good for you. Anyways, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Carried. Item number 3, memo from the Bylaw Enforcement Policy Coordinator or Deputy Clerk regarding the agreement between the Town of Cobourg and the Ministry of Transportation under the Federal Public Transit Infrastructure Fund, PTIF, Phase 1, Transfer Payment Agreement. And action recommended that Council authorize the preparation of a bylaw authorizing the Mayor and the Municipal Clerk to enter into an agreement with Her Majesty the Queen and the Right of Ontario, represented by the Ministry of Transportation Ontario, MTO, regarding the transfer payment agreement for the Public Transit Infrastructure Fund. And again, I think most of council was down at the Transit the other day and heard the announcements in regards. There was even some public representatives there, which was very nice that we did get some funding. And any questions? Comments? Deputy Mayor?
I don't have a question, Mr. Chair, but perhaps Mr. Thrasher, being director, would like to just highlight the 3 areas that we will hopefully direct that money to on behalf of the town of Cobourg.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. The public transit infrastructure fund that we applied for and were successful getting will get us 10 bus shelters. We'll be able to replace the Wheels bus. That's the small bus that goes off route to pick up people who qualify for those rides, and purchase of some software to try to make the pickup of off route more efficient, because we know that in addition to our own Wheels bus, there are other smaller buses, not all accessible, but other buses, including, for example, community care, and who may be traveling the same routes and picking up people. So those are the 3 projects that we listed and that we were successful getting funding for.
Thank you, Director Tasher. And any other questions? I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Carried. And item number 4 is a report from the Manager of Water Services, Lakefront Utilities Service, Inc., regarding the 2016 Cobourg Water Treatment Plant Summary Compliance Report. And this year we didn't quite make as all as the last year, but we am awful close. Action recommended, whereas Council has considered the report from the Manager of Water Service, Lakefront Utility Inc., regarding the 2016 Cobourg Water Treatment Plant Summary Report. Now therefore it be resolved that Council receive the 2016 Town of Cobourg Water System Plant Summary Report for information purposes, noting that the Cobourg Water System received a final inspection rating at 98.82%, which I think last year we got 99.1 or something. We did not drop very well, and I think that was mostly come to do with documentation, I understand. It wasn't anything that wasn't non-compliance. It was some documentation. Is any questions in regards to it? Mayor Braconier?
Not a question, Chair, just a comment. So this memo was coming from our new superintendent of water services, Larry Spurka. So when Craig Brooks left Lucy to go take on the CAO position in Crammy, Larry was promoted. He was an internal promotion, and he's been doing an excellent job taking over from Craig. And I think that this report, very detailed report covering all aspects of the water operation, is a good example of the quality of superintendent we have within Larry.
You're absolutely right, Mayor Braconier. Is there any other question? Deputy Mayor?
I just want to concur with His Worship's comments. I was pleased to get the report. It's hundreds of pages long, and I did it as my bedtime reading. And I can tell you it's exceptionally thorough, and just my compliments to everybody within the town of Cobourg. And I put it, I believe, for Councillor Seguin to do her bedtime reading. I think you'll be most impressed by the report.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And anything that the government put out as far as getting reports on and things, that's an example of how much reading you actually have to do, even to do the report, let alone read it afterwards. I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Carried.
Okay, we don't have anything in Protection Services agenda tonight, so I'm moving on to Planning and Development Services. So, Councillor Burkett, will you please take the chair?
Thank you, Your Worship. Response to the planning public meeting held on March 6, 2017 regarding an application for an amendment to the zoning bylaw by Sobeys Capital Incorporated for the 1.2 or 62 hectare 4.02 acre parcel of land known municipally as 990 to 1000 Division Street, Cobourg. The action recommended that Council authorize the preparation of a bylaw to amend zoning bylaw number 85-2003 to permit the redevelopment of the site for a new expanded Foodland Supermart. I'd ask Mr. McGlashan just to speak a little to this.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Further to the public meeting, it certainly was enlightening to hear everyone's comments about the south driveway, not only staff and PSAC, but the public as well. But as we indicated, that those are site plan technical matters that can be addressed through a site plan application under the Planning Act, which they are working through as we speak, and will be over the next several months working on that particular issue, among others. So at this time, the proposal to approve the implementing zoning bylaw amendment to establish the principle of the permission for Sobeys Foodland expansion is proposed, and include a holding symbol as well for council's final approval. Just getting the actual bylaw completed and drafted, we have the basics right now, but working back and forth with Sobeys, we may or may not have it for the next regular council, but it may be certainly the next following meeting. We'll work on that.
Any questions from councilors?
Yeah,
Councilor Rowden?
Just a quick comment on that review of that. I know we have one other place in town, there may be more, but Home Hardware, they've got one that's up at the new Keir Street, and there's no light there yet, but at the lower entrance they got an in and out only going north. But I'm wondering if that is working. I think it's working, but we probably know from Public Works, and that could be something that's developed in it, that going north isn't too bad, people getting out there, but when they got to go south, they got to cross 2 lanes of traffic coming out that bottom. It'd be better for everybody to go with the light.
Councillor Rowden, if, my comment on that would be that we think that the Home Hardware right out only is working. In our observation, it's working. The difference with the south entrance at the proposed Foodland development is that it's so close to the Tim Hortons exit. That's the difference, and that's our biggest concern, is the proximity to that other entrance.
And Mr. Chair, if I may follow up, the Sobeys representatives are certainly aware of the Home Hardware site and how it is operating as an example, that they may be looking at a number of different options as well moving forward.
Any other questions from members of council? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Your Worship, unfinished business is listed in the agenda.
Okay, I'm going to call for a adjournment. Okay, Councillor Seguin. Deputy Clerk.